Hey everybody, it is the lesson for April 16th, which is 9.4, multiplying binomials using FOIL. And I am actually filming this on, say 15, 14, the 13th, so that's why I have flat hair today. No power at my house. That was just wonderful and lovely. So before we get started on the FOIL method, let's have a quick word to the Lord in prayer that we can understand all this. Actually, this hopefully will make your life easier compared to what you were doing in 9.2, right? This is 9.3, when we were multiplying binomials. So Heavenly Father, we want to give you praise for giving us this day, for the rain, for the wind, for the storms. We give you praise in all things. And Father, just go with us now as we go over our algebra lesson. Help us to understand what we're doing and just give us wisdom and insight, not only in algebra, but also throughout our lives. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, guys, for some of you who are or maybe YouTube browsers of my videos, I am going to say that I'm going to explain a quiz question that's on the 9.3, 9.4 quiz. It's one of your questions that you look at it and it's like, we've not done this at all. And it's because you've not done it at all. It's really not what the process they're doing here. They don't really explain it until 9.6. So I will give you a hint on that quiz question if you trust me. I'm going to get to where you're not looking up my nose holes so much. And before we go over the FOIL method, the thing that you have to know is you have to be able to recognize what is a binomial. And so that's what our lesson opener is today, is we're going to look through these and you look at them and say, what's a binomial? So, or what is multiplication? What is a product of two binomials? Product, of course, means multiplication. So where am I multiplying two binomials right here? So let's look at this. We have 2x times x squared. Binomial. Binomial means I need two terms. I need to be multiplying two terms to two terms. So is this a product of a binomial? No, that is not a product of a binomial. It's a product of a monomial to a monomial. Now let's look at this. Is 2x multiplied to x squared plus 1 a product of a binomial? Well, that again is a no. That's a monomial. This is a binomial. I need a binomial has two terms in it. Or if you maybe have learned it in 6th or 7th grade, need 1 plus or minus makes me a binomial. That's just how I remember kids doing it from some time. All right, now we have x plus 4 times x minus 3, which will actually be a special product that we look at tomorrow. So look, I have two terms. They're separated by 1 plus, 1 minus. So that is a product of a binomial. So yes, that's a product of a binomial. Now let's go down to here. I have x plus 5, and I'm multiplying that to x squared plus x minus 3. Now this one is a binomial, two terms, 1 plus, but here I have two operation signs, and that's telling me that's a trinomial. That is not a binomial. So go back to my red marker to make it colorful. This is a big no. No. All right, now let's go to the next one. We have 8x plus 7, and then I'm multiplying that to 9x squared minus 6x. Here's where they're wanting to trip you up just a little because they think maybe that's going to fool you. But you guys are smart, and you know, okay, here I have two terms separated by an operational sign, a plus sign. Here are two terms separated by minus. That's perfectly fine. That is a binomial. So yes, this is a product of a binomial. So why are we going crazy over binomials? Because there's a special method that we didn't use yesterday that we're going to use today with multiplying binomials. And for me, normally we get to this chapter late February, early March, and it's almost where it's like you're getting into big time algebra. And when I have taught 7th and 8th grade in the past, especially 8th graders, it seems like 7th graders maybe just had one little teeny lesson on it just to start getting it in your brain. Don't worry if you haven't had it. It's not a big deal. It's a really simple method. When you get to this method, it makes you think, wow, I'm an actual big-time algebra here. And that method is the FOIL method, as I move my chair. Did not do that. So yesterday, if you want to ignore that, I'm just going to look at what we did yesterday. Yesterday, the way we would have multiplied this is, remember, we would separate out one of these binomials. We would have separated out, first of all, this one. And what we would have done is I would have written it like, okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write the y. I'm going to write y and multiply that to y plus 9. I know I'm off the screen, but oh well. And then I'm going to take out 9, right? Yeah, I'm going to take out the 7, sorry. I'm going to take out the 7 and then multiply that to y plus 9. And if you enjoy this method, that's perfectly fine. But there is another method that only works with binomials. So before you start it, you have to look and say, ooh, I have 2 terms, or that's a binomial. And it's the FOIL method. Let's go to FOIL. What does FOIL stand for? Well, that means, and we'll kind of look at this at the same time if I can get it in the screen. Yeah, move it a little bit different. Is I'm going to multiply the first term together. Then I'm going to multiply the outer terms. Then I'm going to multiply the inner terms. And finally, I'm going to multiply the last terms. So that's what FOIL stands for, is first, outer, inner, last. And that's standing for the terms that we're using. So that's what we're going to do in this chapter. Like I said, if you prefer the first method, that's fine. But on your quiz and on your test, there are questions that ask you specifically, what would I multiply with O in the FOIL method? What would I multiply with L in the FOIL method? And they would actually want you to write out what those terms would be. So yes, you will be tested and quizzed on this specific method. So let's try this. Let's move over here to this very first one. We're going to use the FOIL method on every single one of these. Keep getting out of the screen. Hopefully I'm not making you all car sick by going in and out. So F, going to multiply y to y. Remember, when I'm multiplying 2 variables together, technically what's happening is those little exponents are adding together. Y has an exponent of 1. This y has an exponent of 1. So technically what's happening is those 2 1 exponents are adding together to make y squared. Then I'm going to do my outer. I'm going to multiply y to the positive 9, and that's going to become a positive 9y. Then I'm going to do my inner, and that's going to be multiplying the negative 7 to the y, so that's a negative 7y. And then finally, I'm going to multiply the last term. So I'll multiply the negative 7 to the positive 9, and that's going to be a negative 63. If you haven't already guessed, I started on some of your homework. I'm doing some evens. You can choose to do odds, so you can check yourself if you wish. Technically, what you're supposed to be doing here, if we were all in class together, is we would be doing 1 through 55 odds, so you could check yourself. Or if you want to do some, I'm just doing evens because the evens were circled in my book, and I thought, okay, I'll just go with those. So, am I finished with this? I'm not, because I have to do something else. I have to put together like terms. Well, this one is all by itself. There's not another y square through there. There's not another constant in here either, but we'll put that together. We'll move that down in just a second. But right here, I have a positive 9y and a negative 7y. Those are like terms. I need to combine those. So 9 plus a negative 7, signs aren't the same. Going to subtract, take the sign of the larger absolute value number, and so that's going to become a positive 2y. Then I'm going to bring down my constant as a negative 63. That's the exact same thing we would have gotten if I had done it the same way, where I separated out this term and I multiplied the y to that, and then I multiplied the negative 7 to this binomial. It's just a quicker method to use binomials. And in algebra, we use binomials a lot. Your next chapter is going to be able to recognize special products of binomials. You're going to need that in future lessons. So make sure you don't just blow it off and say, hey, I know this, I'm so understanding of this. If you can really get this in your brain right now, it will help you in the future, not just in Algebra 1, but in Algebra 2. And what you're going to find is some of these products are also used in some geometry. So make sure you go ahead and just take a deep breath and go ahead and learn these products. So let's go ahead and go over here. And we have just repeating the FOIL method. My chair is in the way. Okay. So going to go ahead and repeat the FOIL method a couple of times. And then we're going to do something different because I know this one pops up on a test for you. So same thing. We're going to multiply the first term, which is d. Remember, that becomes a d squared. I'm going to multiply the outer terms, d to the negative 8. It becomes a negative 8d. Then I'm going to do the inner terms. That will be a positive 9d. And then I'm going to multiply the last terms, which is 9 times a negative 8, which becomes a negative 72. Then I'm not finished. I have to combine the like terms right here in the middle. And that's going to end up becoming, if I subtract, if I add the negative 8 to the positive 9, signs aren't the same. I subtract, take the sign of the larger absolute value number, and before you say, don't put a 1 there, technically what I have left is, all right, this becomes d squared. That's going to become just a d, just a 1d, okay? If it helps you, there's a little 1 standing there in front of it, and then bring down your 72. We'll do it one more time, and then I'm going to show you, because this is on your test, what you need to look at on your next thing. I didn't even say what page you're on, but we're in 9.4. Your lesson actually starts on page 385, and then I'm moving on to your homework, and then I might flip back to some of these examples to say, hey, why don't you go ahead and mark those, so it might help you on a test or a quiz. My chair is still like in the way. All right, so let's do this last one, and then we'll do just a couple more. All right, so on 18, still using the FOIL method. Here I don't have any constants. I have all variables, or I have all letters, but that's not that big of an issue. I'm just going to keep on multiplying just like always, all right? So what am I going to do? I'm going to multiply a to a. It becomes an a squared. Here's where you might say, what am I doing now? All right, I'm going to multiply the outer. A times the b is just going to become a positive ab. That's all. You just multiply them together. Just stick them together. And then my inner is I'm going to multiply the negative b to the a. It simply becomes a negative ab. Not a big deal, right? And then finally, I'm going to multiply the negative b to the positive b. It will become a negative b squared. Now, I need to put together my like terms. Look what happens to the ab. I have a positive ab, and I'm adding a negative ab. Or you get, I have a positive, and I'm basically subtracting an ab. This ends up becoming 0. It just goes away. So that ends up becoming a squared minus b squared. And this will be a special product that we look at tomorrow called the sum of differences, okay? Or the square, sorry, not sum, square of differences. So let's go over just your chapter a little bit. Then I've got at least a couple more problems I want to show you. One, of course, is me setting up your quiz problem that's on your quiz for 9.3 and 9.4. So if you look on page 385, this explains the full method to you. So if you don't get it from this video, take some time and they break it down really well how to do the full method. Remember on your quiz and on your test, sometimes they force you to use the full method, even if you like the better one. So sometimes they'll say, what term will be O? What term will be I? So make sure you understand that method. When in my book, I put a little note by example 4 because that they have one on your quiz, not on your quiz, they have one on your test that looks like example 4. And we're actually going to do one like that right now so you can see how to do that. So I'm going to erase all of these. And then remember, keep watching. I'm going to help you with the quiz question. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. And let's move over here where we can do one that looks like example 4, which is 31. So let me go ahead and write down 31. That's from your book. Let me bring it over here so I can see it. So 31 on page 387 looks like this. I have a negative 7g and a negative 10, and then I'm squaring that. And they expect you to realize that's multiplying two binomials together where I need to use full. So, because we haven't gotten into special products yet. Eventually, you'll have that down. So, I'm going to write this out like this. I'm going to have negative 7g, negative 10, and then I'm going to multiply that to a negative 7g and a negative 10. And once I have that written out, I'm going to go ahead and use my full method once again. So, I'm going to multiply the negative 7g to the negative 7g. That's my first term. It's right here with F. Then that's going to end up being a positive 49g squared, right? And then I'm going to multiply we're going to outer, the negative 7g to the negative 10, which is going to make that a positive 70g. I'm going to do my inner ones, which makes it the negative 10 to the negative 7g, which will make that a positive 70g. And my final term is me multiplying the negative 10 to the negative 10, which will end up becoming a positive 100. So I've done my multiplication, but there's one more step I got to do. I'm not finished yet. I need to combine like terms, and those like terms are right in the middle, similar to our lesson that we did yesterday. So let's go ahead and combine those like terms, and then I'm finished. So my final answer will be 49g squared plus, I'll add those two together, that's 140g plus 100. I did not check any of my answers the last time we were doing it, so if I messed up something, sorry about that. So that's what our answer to 31 is. So now onto the teaser to get you through. Actually, this is a fairly short lesson because you know how to multiply binomials. It's just using this new method, which is called FOIL. So you should be receiving in the mail, if you haven't already, the quiz for 9.3 and 9.4. For whatever reason, your last question on that quiz is not a multiplication problem. Even though 9.3 and 9.4 were all about multiplying binomials, for some reason they slipped in a division problem there. And for some of you, you might be like, what am I doing here? So number 6 is a division problem, and I'm going to show you how to set it up. It says, find the binomial that must be multiplied by, I'm looking at your quiz, and I'm going to write it down, 5x cubed to yz squared to obtain 15x cubed y squared z to the 5th power plus 5x cubed y z to z squared. I'm going to show you how to set that up where you can figure out what's the binomial I need. So basically, you're going to take that last thing I just read. You're going to take off my marker. take 15x cubed and then y squared and z to the 5th power. And then we're also going to take 5x cubed and y to z squared. And they want to know what's the binomial that I multiplied to 5x cubed yz squared in order to obtain this. Well, basically, if I'm trying to figure out what did I multiply, it'd be the same thing like, what did I multiply to 3 in order to get 12? And you would be like, oh, I'll just divide 12 by the 3 to figure out what I multiplied to it, which you all know is 4. That's an easy one. Same logic applies here. I'm going to divide both of these by the 5x cubed yz squared. Of course, this one over here will just cancel out to be a 1, but make sure you keep the 1 because that's part of your binomial. And then you go back to chapter 8 where we went over exponents, and remember what you did when you are dividing by exponents. That will give you the binomial you need for your question on quiz 9.3, 9.4. This is question 6 on that quiz. Everything else, I pretty much think you can get just from looking through your book. Remember, it is open book. You're always welcome to consult your book. If you have a question, you're always welcome to text me. That's probably the best method to get a very quick response. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I really don't check the Facebook and I really don't check the comments on YouTube because I think I'm getting spammed on YouTube. But that's okay. When somebody says, hey guy, your video looks great. Yeah, not a guy. That kind of sounds like a computer. So that finishes our lesson for today. Tomorrow we're going to go over special products. And that's like square of the difference, square of the sum. This is stuff that you can start looking, especially on a standardized test. You can just glance at it and I know what this is. Don't even have to do the multiplication. Don't have to even use full. And then your final section for this chapter is going to be 9.6, which is all about division, which means 9.6 is the last part of this chapter. You're coming up on a test very quickly. Remember, I will do a video next Monday, because today is the 16th. Next Monday, I'll do a video where I just go through your test and say, hey, question 1 comes from 9.1. Question 2 comes from this, to maybe help you as you do your test open book. So that's all of today's lesson. It's actually fairly short for an algebra lesson. Have a good day and stay well, and I will see you on tomorrow with April 17th. Have a good day. Miss you guys. Where's my record button? There it is.